So now Gary's going to introduce himself because I always mess it up.
Oh, you don't mess it up, Dennis. Anyway, these people all know who I am, what I do. So the theme tonight is going to be a project that Sandy Cooper and I just completed on songs and poems and stories of the Hells Canyon area, from Huntington to Lewiston and from Weiser and Little Salmon Valleys all the way into the beautiful Wallowas, and which I believe is the most beautiful part of Oregon. So the history of white people in the Hells Canyon area actually starts with the 1811 and 1812 expedition by John Jacob Astor across the country to establish a fur trading post at the mouth of the Columbia River, a place that now is known as Astoria. And the hardest part of that trip was through Idaho. They had a disastrous boat wreck in the rapids in East Idaho. The party got split up 4 ways, and they spent like 5 miserable months through the winter getting across the deserts of Idaho, hostile Indians, Hells Canyon, beat their butts, and going over the Blue Mountains in the middle of the winter on foot. So one of the most amazing people on that trip was a Native American woman who became known as Marie Dorian. So her name was Marie, and this first song is going to be about her, as soon as we can overcome technical difficulties.
Well, it doesn't like the clicker, but I have a way.
Manual. Yeah. Manual transmission. We're off to a good start, aren't we?
I'll stand for it. We had a clicker that worked and we lost it.
All right, you ready, boys? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Through the Snake River country of South Idaho, the wind's always blowing wherever you go. A sense you're not alone, a feeling in the air. Walks far woman, her spirit is everywhere. The Dorians were Métis, French and Iowa, sons 2 and 4, 1 on the way. Mr. Hunt hired Pierre to translate and scout, to guide from St. Louis westward to Columbia's mouth. She walked boundless prairies, rugged mountains high, crossed raging rivers, deserts so dry. Hunger and cold, her sorrows were long. Walks far woman, her spirit brave and strong. After Astoria, back to Payette, John Jacob Astor, fur traps had set. Bannocks attacked, leaving every man dead. Walks far woman westward, with her children she fled. The winter storms trapped them high in the blue. She built a brush shelter to help them get through. Horse meat and berries helped them survive when winter storms melted. Westward, they walked out alive. She walked boundless prairies, rugged mountains high, crossed raging rivers, deserts so dry. Hunger and thirst, her sorrows were long. Walks far woman, her spirit brave and strong. The woman traveled on French prairie, known ever after as Madame Marie. She was buried in the church St. Louis, an honor that's given only to those with deep belief. She crossed boundless prairies, rugged mountains high, crossed raging rivers, deserts so dry. Hunger and cold, her sorrows were long, walks far won. Her spirit brave and strong. All right, thank you. And my good friends Dale Fisk on mandolin, and Dennis, of course, and Miss Babylonia Barb on harmony. You'll hear more from them later here. So they didn't name Hell's Canyon. They did name Snake River, and they called it the Accursed Mad River.
I changed it.
There we go. The Accursed Mad River. And they thought they could just make canoes in what is now Jackson Hole, and just calmly canoe all the way to the Columbia River. And they didn't even get close to Hell's Canyon before they had this awful wreck. So here's a poem I wrote about that in the words of the expedition leader. Though long I've been a farmer, there's a story I must tell of a cursed mad river and a canyon straight from hell. To own the Oregon fur trade, that was Astor's dream. To Oregon, the fur trade, that was Astor's dream. And trading post at Columbia's mouth, that was part of his grand scheme. He'd take Northwest furs to China and to London, silk and tea. And then he'd take European goods to New York, and a fortune he would see. He sent a boat around the Cape and one overland group by me, from St. Louis to Pacific through unknown country. Up the Missouri and across the plains, westward we trailed, and across the Rocky Mountains with untold travail. Often we were hungry, tired and wet and cold, Indians always near, and sometimes they were fierce and bold. But this was mere child's play compared to what befell on that accursed mad river in a canyon straight from hell. The Devil's Scuttle Hole, that took some of our canoes down. Food, traps, goods, our comrade Clapine, he drowned. Afoot we crossed the desert, and food and water was scarce. And though cliffs we couldn't descend those cliffs, we could watch the mad river race below. The river then veered north into a hellish canyon, deep and steep. Rapids and cliffs beset us, and the snow was growing deep. The mountains towered up, but up we couldn't go, and Mad River's fearsome torrent raged on below. Weak, sick, and hungry, chilled by ice and snow, we had to eat beaver skin to keep on the go. For 2 weeks we pushed northward, facing death all the way, and at last we had to backtrack. That hellish canyon won the day. And then we found a Shoshone camp, and they told us of a trail. 7 sleeps to cross a mountain where the deep snow might prevail. The suffering was great, a struggle for every man, and at last we saw the river that to the ocean ran. Week down the Columbia, and we were at its mouth. We built Astor's Post for him to grow his wealth, but our suffering had not ended. Many more hardships then befell, but we mostly cursed Mad River and that canyon straight from hell. All right, Dennis, one more here. Two more slides. I'm going to skip that one. So that was the first white party to cross southern Idaho. Only the second party at all to cross Idaho. And then there was the trapper era that ran its course through the 1830s and 40s. and then the Oregon Trail era. And there was a smattering of prospecting done in the 60s and the 70s, but mostly that area was one of the least investigated areas in the lower 48 states. But eventually, the Nez Perce War came along, the Shoshones were kicked out, and the white man came. And with white man came a lot of the problems that white man brings with him. And this is a song that dates back to 1889. It's about the worst massacre of Chinese in American history. It happened in Hell's Canyon, about 40 miles upstream of Lewiston, a place called Deep Creek. And this amazing song, I found a number of versions of it, at least a dozen verses. I won't bore you with all those dozen verses, but the remarkable thing is that they don't dwell on the Chinese getting killed. It's almost all about this gang being bad for stealing horses and cattle. And it kind of gives insight into the culture of the day at the time. You know, a horse or a cow was worth more than a Chinaman, apparently. So here we go. It's not long since I've learned by the loves are our land, a law-abiding citizens have taken in hand. A well-known desperado, he's a horse trader too. He's known on the trail as our Captain Old Blue. The roundhouse at Mackey's is filled every night with court thieves and bummers, their lips are sealed tight. They run in wild horses, and N makes an M. They drive to the basin, known as Blue's Den. Now Tidy's the Night Eagle, he rides on the trails. His equipments are graceful, horse hides for trails. He's fond of the wildlife and a bold buckaroo. He'll live and he'll die on the trail with Old Blue. He went down on Snake River, no horse could he find. Thought of the friends he'd left far behind. His limbs, they were weary, he was darn hungry too, prowling around on the trails with Old Blue. It was late in the evening, they brained the last man, and then bid farewell to their Snake River land. For the officers were coming, not for the men that they slew. They took into custody our Captain Old Blue. They brought him to justice, bold actions to try. He thought for the present his time was to die. For the M it was plain, and the bar OK too. They tried and bound over our Captain Old Blue. And what happened... Thank you. And Old Blue walked. He escaped from jail under mysterious circumstances, and none of the other gang members, even the ones who were arrested, were actually prosecuted. So that story was kind of buried in the archives of the Wallowa County Courthouse until an investigative reporter managed to pry out the records. And so it's quite an amazing story. Now we're going to have our own Sandy Cooper come up here. And she's written 3 poems and a song, and she's going to do 2 poems. Sandy, take it away.
Well, Gary mentioned the Nez Perce Wars, and this is from that era where a young woman was the only white woman killed during that war, and there's a lot of question about what really happened to her. And this is from the viewpoint of her daughter, wondering what had happened to her mother, because they really didn't really know other than that she was gone, and that's it. So, what happened to my mama and my brother? No one can seem to tell me where they've gone. I only want the truth about my mother. Have you seen her or my baby brother John? The Nez Perce warriors came with painted faces. We had to run away or stay and hide. It was only through good luck and God's good graces, or I would have been among the ones who died. We had a cabin there beside the water. There's nothing left. 'Twas eaten by the flame. They burned it down, intent upon the slaughter of the innocents who weren't the ones to blame. Some say the fire was where my mother perished. Others say no sign of her or brother John were left inside the home that she had cherished. And all we really know is that they're gone. As a child, my mama brought joy to the miners. She was like a breath of heaven in their camp. At Scott Bar in California, nothing finer than to see her light their world up like a lamp. Then they moved up north to seek some easy money, to a place called Florence, hidden in the pines. Her daddy called it land of milk and honey, as he worked to make his fortune in the mines. My mama grew up fast there in the mountains, and she married Jakey Williams at 14. But a tragedy on which she was not counting left her widowed, something she had not foreseen. Her Jakey was courageous and a lawman, charged with keeping peace inside that dangerous town, till a man named Owens that he never saw ran and stabbed him through the heart and laid him down. Jakey's murder left her broken down and crying. She was more a child than woman, all alone. There was nothing to prepare her for his dying, and she thought she couldn't make it on her own. Time went by, and she at last rejoined the living, though her heart still felt the agony of loss. Then she met the man who helped her with forgiving and who lifted from her shoulders sorrow's cross. Daddy lived in Warren's diggings and was wealthy. John Jack Manuel stole my mama's lonely heart. He was influential, strong, and he was healthy. But the thing that Mama loved was he was smart. Daddy had so many talents, and he used them. Others living in the town were quite inspired. Hotel owner, brewer, saloonist, and a stockman. Politician, my daddy was admired. But the thing he couldn't do was save my mama or my little brother. They both disappeared. And we never will forget the awful trauma, never having truth to prove that which we feared. All I have is just a simple little treasure, just a silver rose that once adorned her ear. But to hold it in my hand gives me such pleasure, I can close my eyes and feel that she's still here. We may never know what happened to her, ever. Was she captured by the natives, as some say? Did they drown as she was crossing Salmon River? I hope the truth will come to us someday. The longing for the truth will never leave me. As long as I'm alive, I'll gladly wait. I won't let others' dismal tales of woe deceive me, for I know they wait for me at heaven's gate.
Right now? Okay. So tell them a little bit about your background.
Do what now?
When did your kin come here? When did your...
Oh, well, I was extra interested in this project when Gary was talking about it because I have on both sides of my family, my grandpa and grandma lived on Brownlee Creek, just above the guard station there as you go down towards the dam. And my great-grandpa had the Climax Mine group in the Seven Devils. And then on the other side of the river, my dad's would be my great-great-great-grandpa that peeled off of a wagon train in 1850 over in the Farewell Bend area and went down the river and ended up one of the first 5 settlers in what later became Halfway. And so I've got some long-reaching roots that go way back on both sides of the both sides of the river and both sides of the family. So it was really particularly appealing to me to be involved in this, and I felt very honored to be able to capture some of our stories and things that happened in our own family that were of to be recognized, I guess. So this next story here is called Council Valley Laundry. This is by a lady named Oriana Hubbard Martin, and this should make all of us feel really glad that we have modern conveniences nowadays. So, long before you opened your eyes in early spring of 78, when I, of kindergarten size, was in a different state, from then to middle 80s, women of Councilvale on Monday morns betook themselves adown the river trail. 4 women heads of families, 6 maidens fleeing after, 6 dogs a raging far afield, 4 boys with shouts and laughter. Though they 2 brazen kettles bore of 20-gallon measure, they soon were running far before with whoops of boyish pleasure. And soon upon the sandy beach, a big campfire was blazing. Each council human eye could reach showed industry amazing. The boys were dipping water up and keeping kettles boiling, the women rubbing out the clothes with no effect on toiling. The little girls with frying pans warmed up baked beans for dinner, and each one had his happy task, as sure as I'm a sinner. Cooperative? I'll say it was. Community endeavor, although perhaps it had no name till it was o'er forever. But think of it on Monday morns when you turn on your power to do a family washing huge in just about an hour. Yes, think of lonely housewives in early Councilvale, hastening with their offspring adown the river trail.
All right, Brian, come on up. So it doesn't get much more authentic than that background for a project like this. But she's not the only one. Brian here is going to tell you a little bit about his roots. They're not quite as deep as Sandy's, but they're pretty darn, yeah. So Brian's going to recite a couple of poems. That one from 1895 about the Seven Devils mining camp, and another by the Hannibal F. Seven Devils Johnson, who in 1895 published a 140-page book of poems and songs and essays here at the Weiser Signal, 1895. And that poem is about a grizzly bear fight. So take it away, Brian. Tell them us about your background a little bit.
So my family settled in the Weiser Man Creek Valley about 1905. They went on past a little bit, just like a lot of people do, and thought, well, maybe that back there wasn't so bad. And so they were going up the Man Creek Valley, and the wheel broke on the wagon. They decided that was far enough. So they ended up buying the homestead where they stopped from Mr. Hitt of Hitt Mountain, who had homesteaded that place. And then they accumulated a few other places, homesteads along the way. And I also have roots from my dad's mother's side from Indian Valley area, going back a long ways as well from the Stick family and such. So, but anyhow, Gary invited me to be part of the project, and it's been a fun project to be part of. So
is Barb playing on this one?
no.
Okay.
No. So I'm going to do two poems by Hannibal Johnson here. The first one's called The Seven Devils Miners' Bear Fight, written 1895. One morning in the month of August, early while the mountain air was cool, high up in the Seven Devils wandered I in search of gold. Strolling onward, much delighted with the rugged grandeur there, I in sudden horror sighted upon a hill a grizzly bear. Oh, I had the queerest feeling, must have turned a little pale, when I saw the grizzly sitting upon his stubby tail. I knew he saw the motion, and that was quickly made by me, when I, with sudden notion, dodged behind a giant tree. He detecting my hiding place, on he came with giant stride, with his battle flag erected, thundering down the mountainside. When I saw his mouth wide open and his fiery eyeballs glare, I thought the Seven Devils Miners' time had come to say his prayer. I began to scratch the gravel and raced with danger for rife. As round and round the tree we traveled, he for grub and I for life. While the war was thus progressing, every nerve was brought to play. Still in my mind was busy guessing which of us would win the day. When the bear would seem to leave me, his dismal thoughts would fill my mind. I knew when the space in front was widening, he was shortening up behind. Then, with superhuman effort, I bounded in the charge with despair and desperation upon the bear's rear guard. Then he surprised and I delighted. Bruin thought he had thought to change his race. Demoralized and much affrighted, lowered his flag and left the place. Out of breath and much exhausted, on the battlefield I lay, satisfied to be the victor, happy thus to win the day. I slowly drew myself together on this bloodless battle plain. Gathering up the scattering fragments, I wandered back to the camp again. Although I'm fond of meat for dinner, I wish it understood that for the Seven Devils Miner, grizzly meat's no good. So this is a tune that might have been played in the mining camps. It's called Devil's Dream. So this poem is about kind of the progression of ownership through the mining camps and claims within the Seven Devils. And it's a legend of the Seven Devils, also by Hannibal Johnson. There were men of great renown, came from the north to look around, to see if copper could be found to make a show, sufficient for them to settle down in Idaho. They found a camp they thought would pay, the Seven Devils, so they say. They marked them for their lawful prey and began to teach the miners to obey at their command. They thought as they were men of fame, they'd try their little freeze-out game and keep the camp back all the same and get their grip upon the miners' richest claims and make them skip. But strange, no matter how they'd squeeze, the working miner wouldn't freeze. He worked his mine and lived with ease from year to year, and would not bow to these lords to please in want or fear. sticky pages. But Yankee Doodle came to down. He saw that copper could be found, and heaps upon the ground the ore lay. The Yankees thought that the judgment sound, the thing would pay. And now the northern nabob's fate is sealed since Idaho's a state. They stuck their shovels in too late to make it pay. With the men of wealth from the Yankee state have come to stay. The northern nabobs, they are no good. They'll hire men to work a road at wages that would starve a toad. They'd pay in check that's worth, if taken by the load, 6 bits a peck. Montana, take your curses back and keep that damned infernal pack that every noble impulse lack that makes a man. They labor rob with worthless checks whene'er they can. A man who's deemed a millionaire, who in making change would split a hair, and on a railroad bum his fare, is devilish mean. And none who believe in acting fair the curse would screen. And now farewell to all such men. To wish them well would be a sin, because they never fail to skin the poor and the weak. The means by which they gain their ends would shame a sneak. Thank you.
Brian Brent. Yeah. So this gentleman, many of you know, he's one of my heroes. Nobody knows more about the Seven Devils District than this man. Historian, author, musician, scrimshaw artist supreme. Haven't found he even always gets his elk after having 2 knees replaced.
Not always.
Very impressive, at any rate. And he does it the manly way with a bow and arrow. So tell us how your kin came to be around here, Dale.
Well, my dad's parents homesteaded on Pleasant Ridge, north of Council, about 1910. My mother's great-grandfather homesteaded on Fort Hall Hill, if you know where that is, north of Council, where the highway first goes over the hill. Her great-grandfather was a Methodist preacher, and I think he may have built the first Methodist church in Cambridge. I'm not sure. He built one here, anyway, in Cambridge. So my dad grew up on a homestead with no electricity, no radio, no car, and he told stories all of his life, just constantly telling stories about his childhood and what it was like growing up. And it always amazed me that he lived to see a live color broadcast of a man walking on the moon.
Ooh.
I mean, that was his, from horse and buggy to walking on the moon. So I always thought that was amazing. But anyway, he got me interested in history, local history, and I've been writing a History Corner column for the Council newspaper for just over 31 years now. And I've written or co-written 4 books on area history, 2 on railroads, 1 a general history of Council, and my latest one is the Seven Devils mining camps. And I gave a talk 3 weeks ago at the depot in New Meadows, and I videotaped it, but the sound was so bad I made it over at home, and now it's on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube, I have an 1.5-hour presentation on the Seven Devils Mining District and another one that's that long on the Mesa Orchards. So if you go to YouTube and just type in my name in the search bar, you can find both of those. Some people thought the Seven Devils mining district was cursed because pretty much everybody that tried to make a living or make a profit in that district mining copper failed. There were some gold mines too, and there was only one that made any money, but whether they made money more than they spent is a question too. So you can find this song online on YouTube too, but this is called Devil's Curse. They say the devil made these hills pure malice made of stone, and any fool who ventured here would for this sin atone. But many were the wanting souls who plied these beaming peaks and drilled their fervent wishing wells where hope turned to defeat. Well, the copper lay there at their feet, the richest in the nation. But the poison in this feast was the lack of transportation. Hope was pinned on Kleinschmidt's road. His ship would soon come in and break the curse upon this place, and faith was born again. From high above the twisting snake, the crucial course was plowed and scratched across the steepest drop that life and limb allowed. But then a bitter judgment day bespoke man's fall from glory, and saw redemption prophesied, condemned to purgatory. And so the Exodus began from Eden's failed garden. Rejected sacrificial lambs, denied eternal pardon. And to this day the devils reign, their sovereignty unshaken, and stashed upon their jagged throne, man's hubris lies forsaken. I do it without mistakes on YouTube.
How many of you driven down Kleinschmidt grade? Well, shame of you who haven't tried it. It's an experience.
Okay. I got to explain some terminology in this song. This is a song about a locomotive called the Iron Eagle. It's a fictional locomotive, but it has a lot of real stuff in it. When Don Doff and I were writing our book about the Idaho Northern Railroad that ran between Nampa and McCall, we met an old guy in his 90s who started out as a fireman on a steam locomotive and worked his way up in the Union Pacific Company to where he was one of the top engineers of the whole company. And he told us a little bit about running steam engines, and some of the terminology was kind of interesting, and I put it in this song. So a rapper was an engineer that worked the fireman half to death. The fireman had to keep enough fuel in the firebox, and the engineer had a way of however he moved the Johnson bar, how far forward. Now the Johnson bar was a forward and reverse lever that made the engine go forward and back. And Charlie Ferris, the old guy that we talked to, said some engineers would just shove the Johnson bar all the way forward and just leave it there, and just work the fireman half to death. And they had a term for working the fireman half to death, and that was hanging his hide on the coal gate. So I'm using that term in this song. Another thing I'm going to tell about between Banks and Smith's Ferry. There's a 5% grade. That's a steep climb for a train. It doesn't sound like much, but they always had a helper engine stationed at Banks to help trains get up that steep hill. And one of the tactics they used, if you've ever seen a steam engine, there are two big domes on top. One of them is for processing the steam and diverting it into a piston that turns the wheels. The other one is full of sand, and the engineer has a little lever or some kind of way to trickle that sand down through a tube and dump it a little bit at a time right in front of the drive wheels. And you know how slick rails are and how slick train wheels are. The drivers on the locomotive had trouble getting traction sometimes on a steep grade like this 5% grade. And so when you sprinkle sand right in front of the drive wheels, it helps the grip and make it up the hill. So there's a part in here about sand on the track too. Anyway, Gary's going to accompany me on this, and it goes like this. 90 feet high on a rocky mountainside, smoke and cinders blowing black against the sky. 80 tons of rolling thunder, she's a steel-wheeled wonder. She's the big iron eagle on the Idaho northern line. Old Harvey Trapper was a wholehearted rapper. You could call him anything but slow. Left his fireman's hide hanging on the cold day till the firebox began to glow. He was hell for leather, get her done now or never in his fire-breathing monster machine. People all around tied their furniture down when they heard the Iron Eagle scream. 90 feet high on a rocky mountainside, smoke and cinders blowing black against the sky. 80 tons of rolling thunder, she's a steel-wheeled wonder. She's the big Iron Eagle on the Idaho northern line. It was 19 miles up a 5% climb along the steepest grade on the line. Harvey poured it on till the coal was half gone, and he made that old steam engine whine. He was grinding hard on the Johnson bar when the drive wheels began to slip. With a roaring black smokestack and more sand upon that track, the old Eagle flew just like a devil ship. 90 feet high on a rocky mountainside, smoke and cinders blowing black against the sky. 80 tons of rolling thunder, she's a steel-wheeled wonder. She's the big Iron Eagle on the Idaho northern line. 80 tons of rolling thunder, she's a steel-wheeled wonder. She's the big Iron Eagle on the Idaho northern line. Thank you.
Nice job there, Dale. So you'll hear more of him a little bit later. We're going to take a little break here and shamelessly peddle some merchandise back there. Christmas coming up, right? And you probably have people that have everything. Oh, no, they don't have everything. And then we're going to do another set. So hang around. Oh, I think we're missing a harp player who also knows how to run the graphics here. So we're going to stay in the mining theme here. And the year here is 1898, when a pretty well-known cowman named Mart Hibbs, somewhere he had a spread on the Imnaha River, and he had a blacksmith shop, and one day a mining engineer stopped by and saw all this green rocks on his shelf there. That's interesting. So he proceeded unsuccessfully to pry the location out of that miner or that rancher's memory. And the next thing you knew, the town of Eureka was formed. And it was one of these flash and plant in the pan things. They had, by some estimates, 2,000 people there at one time. And then the next year, nothing, So that's what this song is all about. And some people believe the whole dang thing was a scam, which wouldn't be surprising. There's plenty of that, wasn't there, Dale? There we go. So you ready, Dennis? You going to play on this one with us?
I'm going to try not to lose the clicker.
So this mine was paying for those investors down in, I'll call them maybe fraudster, possibly fraud, possibly, in Lewiston that went back east and raised up a couple $1 million to build this worthless mine. So, or was it just a misjudgment of the prospect? You can decide. You ready there, Dennis?
No. I got the clicker, I lost my microphone.
Keep talking.
We are a finely oiled machine here tonight.
You know, I wrote a song myself. It's called "Of All the Things I Ever Lost, I Miss My Mind the Most."
It doesn't.
I found my microphone now.
It doesn't get any easier, Dennis. Are you ready?
I am now.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Well, rocks a bright green on the shelf gleamed, catching the old miner's eye. He asked where the ground with green rocks is found. The rancher gave no reply. The miner departed. The rancher then started to where he would stake out his claims. Where in the haw meets the snake, a fortune he'd make. The Eureka mine would be famed. Dennis. The rancher soon sold to businessmen bold downriver at Lewiston town. They made up a plan. Back east they ran, where wealthy investors are found. A mine town and mill, quickly they'd build. Shops and saloons would abound. And a tunnel they'd drive through the divide, where surely rich ore would be found. Play a break there, Dennis. Now, some of you may not know that there's a pretty amazing steamboat history in Hell's Canyon. 2 of them ran downstream all the way, got beaten up pretty badly, but they made it. And this one they built for the Eureka mine had a short career. A steamboat they'd make, and on it they'd take men and supplies to the mine. On her 14th trip, a big rock she hit, to the bottom of Snake she reclined. And when a year passed, they hit an impasse, a pay streak they couldn't find. Eureka was toast, gone like a ghost, like many a Hell's Canyon mine. The feds later took experts to look or overlooked or at the mine. They found a mill and a hole in the hill. No copper or gold did they find. Was Eureka a fake by swindlers and rakes, or an honest mistake gone astray? We'll never know. Well, what really showed Eureka would never pay. Take her home, Dennis. All righty. So, ranching eventually came. You know what? The ranching came to Idaho because of the mines. That's the truth. Big time ranching. Those miners needed a lot of protein in their diet, and you weren't going to drive cattle from Idaho to anywhere to sell them before the railroads came. So this is a poem I wrote about 4 great stock barons of the Hell's Canyon region. And many of you might know about the Circle C Ranch. It was up around Meadows. But there are others. And, of course, the great OX Ranch, which is still running today. So here we go. But there were sheepmen too. The great Hell's Canyon cattle and sheep barons were men of pluck and skill and intelligence and daring. They were tough, hard-working men who started with little more than their grit and the shirt on their backs. They embodied the great American dream. Only one of these four stockmen was born into the stockman's life. The others came from wildly different landscapes and lifestyles. But they were not afraid to roll the dice in this unforgiving landscape. Daring harsh weather, disease, wild animals, economic downturns, they succeeded beyond even their own ambitions. The first was young Charles Campbell. In 72, this is 1872, of course. In 72, he left his Illinois farm family. And in Nevada, Charlie learned the ways of the West. And by 79, he was homesteading on the Weiser Salmon Divide. With Indian troubles past, he created the famous Circle C Ranch. The next was Frank Wyatt, who left Missouri in his teens. He worked his way west and started a ranch in Colorado. And in 83, he trailed his cattle to the lower Salmon, and he prospered. His bow and arrow brand ran from Deer Creek to Pittsburgh Landing and across the Snake. But Bo was cruelly broken by the drought and the bad winter of 1919. Charlie Campbell spawned a rambunctious son named Albert. At age 21 in 1910, Albert borrowed $3,000 from his father, and he bought a small Seven Devils spread. He developed it into the great OX Ranch. Albert's cattle range across the Snake into Oregon, and that great ranch still operates to this very day. Not least was sheepman George Spiropoulos. Very familiar name here in town, huh? This Greek boy came to America in 1910 at age 15, knowing no English. And by age 30, his sheep bands ranged from the Seven Devils into Oregon. And his new Greek bride lived in a fine mansion. Against the odds, George competed with cattlemen while maintaining lifelong friendships. But these powerful stockmen did not build their empires alone. Each had a strong woman to tend the homestead, to do correspondence and keep records and the books for the ranch. Mattie, Carolyn, Gracie, and Hio, they also kept the wild impulses of their cowboys in check. The great stock barons of Hell's Canyon, they're long gone, but you can sense their spirit if only you listen at a Seven Devils campfire, or on a lower Salmon trail, or when you cast for cutthroat on Wild Horse Creek, or you watch the eagles soar over the Snake. So, thank you. I love cowboy poetry when it's done well, and one of the best is a guy named Tom Swearingen, who was an Oregon. He's the Oregon, more or less official. He's acknowledged the cowboy poet of Oregon, and he wrote this amazing poem about an event that happened in Joseph in 1896. Next slide, please. How many of you have been to Joseph, Oregon? Lord, is that a beautiful place? And don't you think that Chief Joseph, that was his homeland? What a loss he suffered when he lost that. So this is a story. It's a true story. And I love it because it's the poem is well put together, and it has a big surprise at the ending for you. You've no doubt heard some stories of the wild and woolly West, and you wondered if they could be true, if they could pass the test of actual, factual truthfulness, and not just some made-up tale and lure, some Hollywood writer's conjured saga of before. But no, not this story that I'm telling. No, folks, I'll be frank. The details actually happened, and you can take that to the bank. Which, not coincidentally, is where this all took place. It's a story of love and bad decisions and then recovering from disgrace. The first bank of Joseph, Oregon, 1896, the history shows, was held up by some outlaws and a local wanting to propose. Young Dave Tucker was a cowboy, and his wages kept him poor. He couldn't see his way to marrying until he had much more. His sweetheart's name was Minnie, and he so wanted her hand. But his meager cowhand savings would barely buy a band. So when he learned that 2 stick-up men on the run and laying low, along with a Joseph bar owner, were planning to undergo a bank heist in that little town, Tucker thought that'd be the way he could fatten up his bankroll and sweep Minnie away. So, against his better judgment, love clouding his moral compass, he threw in with the outlaws and became part of the rumpus. With the barkeeping standing lookout, the others rode up to the bank, tied their horses and drew their guns, and they went in with Tucker watching flank. "Stick 'em up," the leveled shotgun got the bank man's attention, and they took to cleaning out the place, when a bystander's alarm caused intervention, which soon led to an army of armed locals in pursuit, bullets flying, one robber dying, another escaping with the loot. And our man, David Tucker, was hit with buckshot in his side and a bullet that took 2 fingers, but more than that, it took his pride. All of Joseph knew Dave Tucker, and they were shocked at his mistake, getting caught up in this bank heist and his future now at stake. Sentenced to 6 years in the Oregon State Pen, he used the time to contemplate and plan for the day when he'd get out and start working to rebuild his broken life, and his dream of someday, if he deserved it, taking Minnie for his wife. Well, his sentence was shortened for good behavior, and he set out to mend his harm. He moved back to Joseph, and with hard work, bought a farm. In time, he'd built some savings and won back the town's favor, plus the hand of his sweet Minnie. By all accounts, he was a fine neighbor. Now, the story could just end right there with him living out their lives, a hardworking, honest stockman, and his trustful, faithful wife. But there's a better ending and a real heartwarming turn about character and kindness and other lessons we can learn. Fast forward to 1928, 32 years past Dave's fall. He invested in the First National Bank of Joseph, successor bank of his armed withdrawal. And so complete was his redemption, so much trust he had re-earned, he was elected vice president, and no one was concerned. I'm telling you, that is a great story and a well put together cowboy poem. So let's see here. We're going to stay in the cowboy mode here a little bit, and this is another dark story about a guy named Mac Myers. And Mac had been a cantankerous cowboy on the OX up in the Seven Devils. And apparently he had a personality problem, and he decided, I'm just going to get away from all this. I don't have to deal with people. So he found a homestead he could move into down at Big Bar in bottom of Hell's Canyon. Surely nobody would bother him. Really? Mac Myers looked for solace where others, here we go. Mac Myers looked for solid where others were afar. Deep down in Hell's Canyon at a homestead on Big Bar. He's sweet as sour milk. That's what some folks said. best leave that man alone, or you could wind up dead. Well, the Hall Ranch trailed their cattle along a creek next to Mac. At times, those pesky cattle ate his garden for a snack. Well, mad as hell, Mac declared, "I'll shut your cow trail down." The cowboys laughed at Mac, but the old man had a gun. In the Hell's Canyon country, in the distant past, men were tough, women too, scores were settled fast. Cowboys on a homestead, don't let your cattle run, and give your due respect to an old coot with a gun. In May of 1904, 2 cowboys on a drive trailed some cattle from the Snake up the Low Divide. At the creek near Mac's, they'd stretched between a pine. Their cattle found Mac's garden, and on it they would dine. Mac grabbed his rifle, and he's hastened up the trail. Somewhere below Low Saddle, tragedy availed. Oh, Mac's 30-30 laid George Brownlee dead. His partner took a bullet, and he rode the ranch ahead. In Hell's Canyon country, in the distant past, men were tough, women too, scores were settled fast. Cowboys on a homestead, don't let your cattle run, and give your due respect to an old coot with a gun. That's still good advice, isn't it? Keep your cattle out of your neighbor's yard, and don't underestimate what the old coot can do. Well, a white-bird posse set out to run Mac to the ground. Without a fight, they found him, and they brought him back to town. They'd try old Mac in Grangeville for shooting Brownlee down, but he was lynched in a cottonwood 2 miles out of town. In Hell's Canyon country, in the distant past, men were tough, women too, scores were settled fast. Cowboys on a homestead, don't let your cattle run, and give your due respect to an old coot with a gun or a rope. Thank you. That's the next to the last known lynching in Idaho. And the last one happened only a year or 2 after that in Grangeville. So something was going on up there. All right, Sandy, why don't you come on up and tell us about Josie Bickerstaff White.
Well, Josie Bickerstaff White, I came across an article about this woman, and I've written this as if she was my grandmother because she was a tough old broad. And anyway, had a hair-trigger temper, and it was kind of fun to read about some of the things that she did. A family photo album tells the stories from the past and all your kin that came before. It makes those memories last. Sometimes you find surprises, as you will plainly see. And here's what I discovered when I climbed my family tree. A picture, old and faded, of my granny in her youth. I knew my eyes weren't lying, but it hurt to see the truth. Underneath her scowling face, my granny held a sign. Adams County Transfer Inmate Number 13609. My granny was a stubborn gal, and she was big and strong. She'd always fight for what was right, even if she was dead wrong. It got her into trouble and into jail a time or three, and I had found her mugshot from the penitentiary. One autumn day, she went to school to even up a score, said the schoolmarm had insulted her, so she beat her to the floor. She left that woman bleeding, thought she'd left her lying dead, from all the blows she'd given to her body, face, and head. Her maiden name was Biggerstaff when she married Charlie White, and Charlie didn't know it then, but Granny loved to fight. He criticized her cooking once when they were newlywed. Next thing he knew, a frying pan went sizzling past his head. So Charlie walked on eggshells in the line he always towed, 'cause he never knew ahead of time what'd light her fuse and make the old girl explode. So he took to staying late in town to down a shot or two, 'cause he never knew ahead of time what Granny was going to do. One night, he tossed his hat inside and it landed on the floor. She filled that Stetson full of lead and tossed it back out the door. That should have told old Charlie she was a walking powder keg. When he sat down to eat his beans, Granny shot him in the leg. She claimed that she'd been aiming for a spot above his eye. She said, "I sure am sorry. Sorry that you didn't die. I meant to end my misery and send you straight to hell. Now all I've got ahead of me is sitting in a jailhouse cell." So the sheriff came for Granny, and he locked her up that day. For all her misbehaving, he said she had to pay. Poor Charlie nearly lost his leg, and he could have lost his life. Guess he should have done a better job of picking out his wife. He never walked the same again, but he left that little town, wearing that same old Stetson with the ventilated crown. And though he'd always walked on eggshells in the line he always towed, he found it didn't take a thing to make that old girl explode. Nope, it never ever took a thing to make that old girl explode. Thank you.
Hope it stayed. I'm going to do a quick check on these strings.
So this next poem is about mining, the mining camps up in the Seven Devils. It's a poem of the mining camp. It was written by N.K. Griggs in 1899, and this is, I'll recite 5 of the 27 verses here for you, so won't make you sit through all of them. So, Hell's Canyon, a poem of the Seven Devils. Hell's Canyon was all its name implied, a place where demons held forth in their pride. Even where old Satan often was outdone by desperate deed of daughter or son, some horrible one. That place was far worse than the city of woe, from which Madame Lowe once attempted to go. For far down in that diggin', no daughter of Eve had husband or virtue that would cause them to leave, but they didn't grieve. Well, one morning last summer, a singular chap got lost in the canyon by a seeming mishap. For far from his pasture had wandered away a lamb which had carelessly wandered astray, where wolves were all gray. A day or two later, the ruler of hell perceived that the singer was a preacher as well, and so as he deemed that danger was dire, he fanned up his minions for murderous ire and poked up his fire. The terrible wand in that resolute hand made every heart faint in that renegade land. And though they all gagged at the jalop of fate, they wisely decided that they'd swallow it straight. And it was first rate.
So, those of you who listened to that little tribute I put together at halftime and it's a prelude for the great Blaine Stubblefield. Probably a few facts there you didn't know. He did many, many things other than start the National Old Time Fiddle Contest. He started the first commercial rafting operation in Hell's Canyon, and before that he was a big-time magazine editor in New York and Washington, D.C. He did press conferences at the White House, and he befriended the great folklorist Alan Lomax at the Library of Congress. And that recording I played of you singing Way Out in Idaho is one of the two earliest known recordings made in having to do with Idaho, other than some Nez Perce field recordings. Now I'm going to play you the second song. This is slightly before Blaine's recording. It was made by a man who got caught up in the gruesome shootout between wobbly union organizers and locals in Centralia, Washington in 1919. And this man wound up serving 7 years in the Walla Walla prison. Probably was an innocent man. And he had a sweetheart he married, and they lived in Lewiston at the time. And they took a honeymoon trip by horse across probably across the Dumac Prairie, across the river, and up into the Wallowa Lake. And he wrote this poem, which became a song for his lovely bride from the prison. So we're just going to play a little bit of it here, but in the first part of it, just as you could for the Way Out in Idaho, you would hear Blaine Stubblefield's voice. Here you'll hear Glenn Barnett's voice after he was released from prison, after he had this song recorded in 1932, talking about his wife. And then it goes into the 5-minute long song. We won't play all of it, but you'll get an idea. It was a throwback recording to what the sound you had heard from Tin Pan Alley in the early 1900s. So it's kind of a archaic recording even for the 1930. But it was one of the two earliest recordings made in Idaho. So can you roll it there, Brian?
Flower is an Indian word designating the tripods with which the Nez Perce Indians anchor their fish traps to the river's bank. Wallowa Lake, river, and county in Oregon derive their names from these tripods which line the river bank. Wallowa Love was written by me to my wife as tribute to her love, which is even more steadfast than Wallowa. My good friend George Glort, famous radio tenor of Chicago, will now sing for you Wallowa Love.
The autumn moon is shining o'er Wallawa's grassy hills, and the lone coyote is howling far above. Where the mighty crags are towering like rock steeples on the hills, while a man and a maiden plight their troth of love. Says the man, I'll ever love you with a love that's pure and true. You're the only girl in all this world for me. I could never love another in the same way I love you. Oh, darling, say my own you'll ever be. Then the maiden snuggles closer with a happy little sigh, and rests her head upon his heaving breast, saying, sure, sweetheart, I love you, and I'm yours until I die. Just as true, dear, as Wallawa's in the West.
All right, that's a historically significant song, as was way out in Idaho, and they're based here in the Hells Canyon region. So, Sandy, come on up and tell us some more here about your grandparents.
Okay. My grandfolks, of course, like most people during those days, but had no electricity. It was really off the grid in the true sense. I remember Grandma lugging water from the creek, and we had a little dipper that hung on the side of the bucket, and everybody drank out of that, and nobody seemed to die from it. And never did get electricity. Finally got a telephone somewhere in the mid-'60s, and indoor plumbing, and that was, but I can remember many little trips down, kind of scary trips down to the outhouse, but it was one of the most wonderful places to spend time. That was just a special time, a magical place for, I think, all of us kids, and it was fabulous to be there. Times were kind of tough back then. This next poem is about an experience that my mother described. She was an only child, and this is an experience that she had when she was just a young girl. My grandmother's mother was buried right there on their place. Her grave was right there, so that is part of this story as well. But this story is called, or this poem is called Cuddy Mountain spectral. My mama was an only child who loved to roam the hills. With her faithful pony Monty, she explored the rocks and rills. The trails on Cuddy Mountain often followed Brownlee Creek. As they dropped down to Snake River, they were twisting, dark, and steep. She rode the Brownlee Ferry, firmly cabled to the shore, to cross the wide Snake River to buy candy at the store. Her cousins and some neighbor kids met up with her that day, for they were lonesome mountain kids with not much chance to play. They rode their horses to the Snake and watched the water swirl, a fascinating sight for an 11-year-old girl. When the news came down that afternoon, late in the afternoon, that there had been a tragedy and she must come home soon. She crossed the ferry once again, let Monty have his head, so he could travel freely going back to their homestead. The note had been a sad one, saying Cousin Duke had died. From a word she'd never heard before, they called it suicide. He'd run a hose inside the car he'd parked inside the shed and let the engine's fumes flow in and breathe till he was dead. So she hurried up the canyon, letting Monty find his way, as she watched the grassy shadows in the darkness turn to gray. The road grew even darker as the shadows gathered round, and Monty might have stumbled on that hard, uneven ground if it hadn't been for something most amazing on that night. For just beyond them, in the gloom, appeared a guiding light. It made her think of candles or the glow of an oil lamp, or the soft light from the fire as they sat around their camp. It lit her journey homeward and gave comfort on her way. She felt a loving presence she could not explain that day. She saw lamplights in the window as she neared her home that night, but they weren't as reassuring as that special lantern's light. There was something close to magic in the light that lantern gave, for it left the road and crossed the field to Mama's grandma's grave, where it twinkled very gently, then it faded from her sight, and she knew the one who'd guided her and Monty home that night. My mama never feared the dark wherever she did roam, because she knew there'd always be a light to lead her home.
Oh, many mysteries up there in the Seven Devils, aren't there?
Now, this song is about the Depression and the really tough time that people had, the hunger, the deprivation that people had, and how desperate people were to just hang on and survive. And a lot of folks all over the United States were involved in a particularly lucrative business called the moonshine business, and that would include my grandparents and their immediate family, and that's what this song is about. At the foot of Cuddy Mountain, in the hills of Idaho, in the awful Great Depression, times were hard. No jobs, no food, no money, hope was melting like the snow. and the icy wolf of hunger prowled the yard. She gathered corn and taters, it hunted for their meat. They worked so hard to try to fill the store. But with winter on the mountain and too many mouths to feed, they knew they'd never make it without more. She said, Mama's gonna break the law and run a moonshine still. I'll shoot those revenuer men if they come down that hill. She cradled baby in her arms, sang a lullaby, and promised she'd do anything so baby would not die. That corn she turned to whiskey, they made do with beans and bread. She hid her jars of moonshine in the mud and waited with her rifle for the men they called the feds, and prayed she would not have to shed their blood.
Take it again.
The feds left empty-handed, for they never found her stash. They drove away in their dusty car and never once looked back. She hauled her moonshine into town, traded it for cash, unloaded her old rifle, hung it empty on the rack. She cradled baby in her arms, whispered a lullaby. I could have done an awful thing, but baby, don't you cry. Those federal men have left these hills, don't reckon they'll be back. I'm glad they're going home alive, not to widows dressed in black. Thank you.
Well, you heard Gary talk about Martin Hibbs. Those green rocks that he had, of course, were copper ore. And I just wanted to say something that was really important about why the mines in the Seven Devils failed. One was they were so far from a railroad, and in the days before trucks and heavy equipment, driving a horse-drawn wagon with 1.5 tons of ore in it clear to Council, or at first clear to Weiser, was kind of unreasonable. Anyway, the transportation problem was one. The other one was even worse, and that was in the Seven Devils. the copper ore was not in a continuous vein. In Montana, it had been, and they made a fortune mining a vein. They'd stick on it for a month and just keep going. But in the Seven Devils, they'd go into a deposit of rich copper ore, and it was very good copper ore, but then it would end. And that pocket would be done, and who knows where the next one was. And that's because the Seven Devils, the geology of Idaho is really interesting if you ever want to really study it. Because of plate tectonics, the Seven Devils is a big rock salad, and everything's just a mixed up mess, and the copper deposits are just here, there, everywhere. You can't mine that successfully because you can't find the next one. Every copper mine failed. They just couldn't make a profit. Okay. Martin Hibbs, getting back to him. He was a very well-known rancher down in Hell's Canyon, and he was murdered in 1935, and this poem is about that. The Ballad of Martin Hibbs. Around the Horn from Ireland young Martin Hibbs did sail. In Oregon he found a wife, and so begins the tale. In the shadow of the Devil's Peak, steep as the road to hell, Mart and Ellen toiled to make a home where they would dwell. Sweet Ellen died in 26, and Mart lived on alone, upon this piece of even ground between the crags of stone. And in Hell's Canyon to this day, the wind calls out their names, and the stories of their lives they lived are all that yet remain. A neighbor found poor Mart Hibbs dead, shot while his back was turned. A second corpse lay in the ruins of his cabin, burned. The charred remains were of a friend who thought Mart was another, and when his error was laid plain, he blew his brain asunder. The bullet from his .44 passed through his errant head and knocked the hot pipe from the stove and made the fire spread. In Hell's Canyon to this day, the wind calls out their name, and the stories of the lives they lived are all that yet remain. I got to explain this. It's a little hard to understand just from the poem, but the guy thought Mart Hibbs was somebody else, and somebody he knew that was coming to kill him. So he shot Mart thinking he was that guy, and then he shot himself. The bullet went through his head into the stovepipe, burned the cabin down. That's the theory anyway. Nobody really knows. They found him dead in the burned cabin and Mart Hibbs laying out there dead. And it's kind of a mystery, but they think that's what happened anyway.
All right, we're going to close out the show with two songs. And some of you know I grew up in rural West Virginia. I was telling Dennis, we live so far back in the sticks that even Presbyterians handled snakes. About half of you get that joke. If you don't get it, talk to the people that just laughed at that joke. It's pretty funny, actually. So I did spend a lot of time over the last few years over in the Wallowas, and I never write a song or do a project about an area that I haven't spent a lot of time in. You just have to do it if you're going to be credible at this. And you meet amazing people, amazing stories. And one of the stories I found over there, one of the guys there told me, back in the late 1800s, a bunch of West Virginia coal miners found the Wallowa Valley. And they were running away from the dreadful working conditions and the violence between the mine owners and the coal miners, and they just wanted the hell out of there, right? And so a bunch of families led by an itinerant preacher named George Washington Carper. Great name, huh? They went and started farming in the Wallowa Valley. Now, how did they find that place? Nobody knows that. But some of those Appalachian traditions they brought with them are still there today, including some pretty specific Appalachian fiddle styles. There's some people there that still play that particular style. But, for me, that's gold, a story like that. I said, I want to write a story about it. And my contact there says, well, hold on. We already wrote that song. And not only that, the high school there had a project where they set it, they recorded the song, Descendants of George Washington Carver, and they produced this beautiful video that highlighted the whole story of the song. So that is gold for me. That's not a song written before 1924, which is my usual cutoff. But, you know, somebody's got to write a song about that story. So we need Dennis. He's back there. We're ready. I'll do the best I can to sing this like Colton Haney sang it and Janice Carper, but you get what you pay for sometimes. Emerging. Hold on here. Let me fire this sucker up here. In my feeble, I probably have 200 songs I perform, and without a little help, I'm toast, just like the Eureka Mine. I need to cheat a little bit here. You'll forgive me, won't you, Dale?
Absolutely.
So I love doing this project, and Sandy I knew well. I got to know Dale better, and Brian. You're lucky to have these people here carrying on the traditions. So, okay, and thanks to all of you for coming out tonight. So, emerging from the darkness in the mines of West Virginia, looking onward to the promise of a new and brighter day, to a new and brighter day. So we left there, traveling heavy, westward bound to our rebirth, with the grace of God to guide us to the arms of Mother Earth, to the arms of Mother Earth, to the promised land I promised we will go. The song of these blue mountains call us home. Play it, Slim. So, of course, the promise, this song was after the land of promise in the Bible. That's why George Washington Carver called that new start, that new town he created, Promise. Tallest pines and greenest meadows, fertile ground, new seeds to start, and the deepest snows of winter melt away with the fire in our hearts. Melt away with the fire in our hearts. To the promised land I promised we will go. The song of these blue mountains call us home. And from these promised hills we'll never go. And here our spirits are forever home. So Barb, my dear friend Barb here, doesn't she sing Sweet Harmony? Yeah. And not bad on banjo either. All right, you guys get to sing along on this last song here. This is a song by Hannibal F. Johnson. We talked a lot about him tonight. He was something else. He was, among other things, a preacher, an orator, the first county senator from Adams County to the Idaho legislature in 1890, an herbal medicine man, a fiddler, author. I mean, he goes on and on. And in his spare time, he homesteaded and he prospected in mine. Beyond that, he didn't do very much. Oh, yeah, he published this 135-page book of poems and songs. So this song is, one more slide there, please. So it's to the melody of "Oh, Susanna," which was a popular song of the time. Well, excuse me, I didn't put the lyrics up there. So the chorus goes like this, if you can remember it. Then dig, boys, dig, let us the rich ore find, and open up in handsome style the 7 devils' mine again. Then dig, boys, dig, let us the rich ore find, and open up in handsome style the 7 devils' mine. You got that? Okay. Now imagine you're in a 7 devils camp way high up, and you have a bunch of miners there at the end of the day, celebrating the end of the day around a campfire. Probably the liquor was freely flowing, and people were playing anything they could have, even a can of Spam. You notice Sandy back here is our percussionist. She's playing a legitimate can of Spam on this.
A lot of dents in that can.
Remember, you saw it here first, folks.
So we're going to do old-timey style where everybody joins in singing, everybody joins in playing the chorus, the brace. 1, 2, 3. Clap if you want, in time, of course. Come all you bold adventurers and listen to my song about the 7 devils' mine. I will not keep you long. Those mines of wealth that lately found display the rich or bright, and millions yet beneath the ground bound to see the light. And when you pack your old cayuse, start to make a raise, stop upon a grassy plot and let that equine graze. You're liable at any time to spot a rattle bug. Then don't forget the snake bite cure in the old brown jug. And dig, boys, dig, let us the rich ore find, and open up in handsome style 7 devils' mine. Play it. And there probably were fiddles and banjos up there, and probably bean cans. If not, well, Spam hadn't been invented by them. But certainly sticks to beat a rhythm out. Then when you reach the devil's mines, all filled with wind and gush, don't mope about and hang your head, you'd make those devils blush. And shoulder up your pick and pan, take your shovel too, and when you strike a rich ore vein, just pop the devil through. And when the rock becomes so hard you can no longer pick, don't hang your head and look so sour you'd make the devil sick. Seize your drill and hammer, put down a 4-foot hole, and charge it well with dynamite, and watch the thunder roll. And dig, boys, dig, let us the rich ore find, and open up in handsome style the 7 devils' mine. Play it. And when we're down 100 feet with rich ore on the dump, the money kings will all take hold and make the devils hump. And when we sell our mines of wealth, we'll have money, boys, to spend. We'll put our plated harness on, visit all our friends. For when a man has wealthy grown, the past is all forgot. He's honored, petted, loved, and praised as though a drunken sot. And as our wealth accumulates, well, the ladies all will smile, we'll bid the devils a goodbye and live in splendid style. And dig, boys, dig, let us the rich ore find, and open up in handsome style the seven devils' mine. Play! Thank you all.